All right. I was trying live stream from Facebook and I just can't get into it. So I'm going to record this, upload it to YouTube, and share it to Facebook, share it to my um, YouTube, and so forth. I wanted to do a video, and actually I feel more comfortable doing this because I've done videos from home before. I wanted to do a video for my new followers over at my templeoffortuna.com group because we're going through some transitions right now, and I've changed since I started things, and I wanted to give a little history, a little background, and some ideas and tips for how you can do rituals yourself once we've made the transition. Now, the first thing I wanted to explain is that within the neo-pagan community, one thing I didn't realize when I started was within the neo-pagan community, there's a lot of people who feel like that you need to have degrees in paganism, which is not like a college degree. A degree in paganism can take maybe a year to complete. Excuse me, I'm going to minimize something if I can so I can see what I need to see here. There we are. Um, and a degree in a college is going to take probably more than a year. So it's not the same thing as a college degree. Excuse me. I'm going to try and make myself comfortable while I do this. Um, and I don't have, or I didn't have any degrees outside of my university degree when I first started. However, I'm an American citizen. I have the right to free speech. I have the right to beliefs as long as I don't harm anybody, which I don't intend to harm anybody. And I also have the right to form an organization based on my beliefs. That's my doggie in the background. She's very important, and I'll tell you why later. So my feeling is, as an American citizen doing something legal that was approved eventually by the government, I don't need to have degrees, and neither do you need to have degrees in order to honor an ancient goddess if you believe in her. And over the years, I have found that I believe in the practice of honoring this goddess as being soothing, as being as helpful as meditation, and it to me it doesn't matter what my beliefs are. If I feel better and if I have my day seems to go smoother and I seem to have more happy moments while I'm honoring this goddess, well then it works. And it works for me, and it may work differently for different people. So the first thing I wanted to say is I didn't have any specific neo-pagan education before I started. And I made what a lot of people told me were mistakes when I was making the recordings. And I continued to make recordings, and I made recordings every week on a Sunday morning for about a year and a half. Those recordings are still available to anybody who wants to listen to them. And at the time, I was very intimidated by people who seemed to know more and so forth. I'm no longer intimidated by those people because I've seen web pages go up and down and rise and fall, and the organization lasted from 2009 until it's 2022 now, and it may dissolve sometime this year. But it's not because of anything that I didn't know. It's because that I'm actually losing um, a space that I was lucky to have use of for recordings and being here on Sunday mornings for recordings. Just a few months after I bought the templeoffortuna.com domain name, which is actually privately owned. It's never transferred into the ownership of the organization for the reason that once I started building it up, the hosting fees got pretty expensive, and I wasn't sure that the organization was going to have enough money to pay for its own hosting fees. I have since transferred it over to Blogger, which is a free hosting platform, and all this was done on my own as an amateur. So the website, if it looks good, I'm blessed because it's just stuff that I've been able to figure out along with some maybe a few classes and tutorials. A very helpful tutorial from I think it was Goldsmiths over at University of London online through I think it was Coursera.org was very helpful, gave me some helpful tips. Um, it's just been my work. And that's something that somebody noted, and I felt that they were quite disappointed recently, is that it's just me. Well, it's not just me because we've had a lot of people contributing, but the website was pretty much just built by me. even though it's on Blogger right now, the domain name continues to be privately owned because I see the small amount of money that's been coming into the coffers. I'm still not sure that the organization could definitely pay for it. And when we've got an organization involved, there's board meetings that have to happen in order for things like domain names to change ownership. And for whatever reason, we haven't been able to get a board of directors together to make the decision to even transfer the domain name over. So this time, the domain name continues to be mine, and all of the website work is my work that hasn't been financially compensated for. It's been basically an act of devotion or a hobby or whatever you want to call it. And so basically, that's been work that I've done for free. And so, maybe that belongs to me too. So maybe it is just me. If the organization goes down, and which means it would be dissolved, then my intention is for the website to stay up, for all those podcasts to stay up, and to basically turn the website into being a place where people could donate to a temple organization to being just a public service. There's no donations that are able to be made through the website at this time, and I don't anticipate that there's going to be donations made through it in the future. It's been my act of devotion, and I think that's good enough. So hopefully that answers one series of questions. The other questions were, how did I think that I was just so great to do this Goddess Fortuna thing, and I didn't have any of these neo-pagan education and so forth. And so I think I'm going to talk to you a little bit about me and my background. And everybody's got their own background. What I discovered was that despite that I didn't know what I was doing, quote unquote, at the time, that after I did it for a certain amount of time, I got better at it. And it's just kind of like anything that you do and you learn, that you start off, you're not that good at it. But then as you go along, you get better if you stick with it. And that's just human nature. We learn things. I'm not the same person I was back in 2009 or 2010 when I was creating those podcasts, because here it is 2022, 2022. And now we're calling it 2022, I guess. So anyway, yeah, so I'm not the same person, and I have not been doing podcasts all that time because I actually felt that there were a number of things that changed, and I felt like that I needed to change. I tried making videos for a while, and I found that at the time it was too much for me. I didn't understand about lighting. I didn't understand about all the things that people are doing these days that make a beautiful video. Maybe I'm a little better at it now. I don't know. But video never turned out to be my thing. The audio, on the other hand, was something that I'd been trained in music as a kid. So I was doing things like subscribing to opera magazines so I could focus on my inflection and my voice tone when I was making audio recordings. And I was bringing in musicians from pagan community and other that had wonderful music. There's wonderful music that comes out all the time. If I had been able to make any money from the podcast, I'd still be podcasting because I love it, and I think that I have maybe a little bit of natural talent at podcasting and bringing in guests. But I didn't make money, and so everything I've done here has been more like an act of devotion or a hobby. And there's a lot of old sayings that Fortuna was featured in the Latin language, and they're beautiful when they're spoken in Latin. And I did bring a lot of those phrases into the podcasts and the translations for them. But one of the very famous Fortuna quotes is Fortuna or fortune helps those who help themselves. And my feeling is that I need to help myself by recognizing that this is a hobby. This is not my vocation. And I think a lot of us have gotten involved in thinking that we really need to devote a lot of time and study and energy to neo-paganism, and yet it doesn't make us any money. I think a lot of us need to recognize that whether it's on for an hour on a Sunday morning or not, there's a limit of amount of time that we can spend reasonably in our hobby or our devotion before we need to, get back to work and make those living. Because this place that I'm living in is not free. I'm not like the sole owner of the place. I have use of the place. Um, but my use of the place is coming to an end in 2022, and it was my decision, and it was agreed upon by the other people who are involved in keeping this space up. It's because we've been through an international pandemic, and we've been through some very major things in the United States of America. We've been through riots, We've been through political uprisings. We've been through things that we haven't been through before, and we're changing. And one of the things that I think that I want to do is roll with that change and make a change that I think needs to be made, and that's for me to release this space. It's a beautiful space, but I need to release it and allow whatever it wants to be with whomever wants it to happen, and for me to actually go and do something else. It doesn't mean I'm no longer a devotee of Fortuna, but what it does mean is that I will not be in this space as I have been every Sunday since 2009, lighting candles, lighting incense, or speaking, vocalizing prayers, or playing music, or whatever, between 11 and 12 o'clock on a Sunday morning anymore. That's going to come to an end. And when you put those kind of energies, even if it's just on an audio level, into a space, especially a space that I feel is as beautiful as the space I'm in now, um, it changes the space and it changes us, and those energies that radiate out change. And so the fact that I'm not going to be doing that on a Sunday morning here, even if it's not recorded, even if those recordings are not shared, I think has some implications on a larger level than just me personally. And so that's for the reason that I'm going to go back in time and do maybe a little bit of a ritual and put some stuff up and show some stuff, and kind of explain some stuff that I've done over the years. One thing I want to explain is that everything about Fortuna, as far as the organization, is in this big fireproof box. This is all the files that pertain to the organization, some books. This is the Nolo Press book, where we learned about how to create an organization. There's a candle sleeve inside here that belongs to the organization that's in this box. There's a wind chime for if we ever have a physical space. There's a wind chime with horseshoes on it that can be put up there. That was my donation from me and my family. A couple of other books. Oh, the AD 381, which gave a little history of Fortuna. I'm donating that to the organization, to the memory of the organization. And then this is I never used this, but it looked good, an encyclopedia of corporate minutes. It looked official. And then, of course, all of the files that pertain to the organization. They're in this fireproof box, and if they don't need to be allocated anywhere when the organization dissolves, and I don't know what needs to be done with anything yet, I need to consult with an attorney, then they'll just stay in this fireproof box for safekeeping on the chance that maybe someday, somewhere, the organization reopens again, either under my auspices or somebody else's. And so, what is also here is all of the sermons, or most of them, the sermons and the rituals that I wrote, including the intro and the closing. And I'm going to go ahead and keep this one out for today. And I'm going to actually put it up here. This is like a sheet that I used for the opening ritual and the closing ritual, because we're going to do somewhat of a ritual here for closing today, or for closing off anything that has to do with the organization. But everything is intended to stay in this fireproof box, and this box can probably go with me wherever I'm going, because I don't think that the corporate records need to be donated to another organization, but I'll find out the details on that later. So that it's safe, and anything that's of financial or monetary value that's donated. I should take that back. I'm not actually donating these to the organization. I'm actually putting these in the organizational box. Okay. I'm not gonna do a formal donation. This is just stuff that pertain to the organization that would be helpful if it opened up, that I don't personally need in my folder. The Greek Fest 2009, in Los Angeles, that I attended for just little stuff that might be nice if the organization ever reopened, to go and revisit and pull out some of this stuff. Now, I don't guarantee there's a Nolo book that talks about how to open a nonprofit corporation in every state, but there's information you can get, and it's best to work with an attorney that's local if you want to open up a branch of Temple of Fortuna for whatever reason. Okay, that said, what am I going to do? What I have done over the last, since I stopped recording in 2010, was I actually devoted a lot of my energies to the yard, to putting gazania in the yard and allowing energies of spring to come forth as they bloomed and as they passed into the seed phase, to allow those seeds to go around and so forth. And pictures of the gazanias, which are a type of flower, do appear on a couple of different versions of my book, P.S. Fortuna. And the reason I mention that is back in 2009 and 2010, I was still in my childbearing years. And some of the aspects of Fortuna very much have to do with childbearing. And I think it was an appropriate time in my life to be doing those recordings. I have changed since then. I'm no longer in my childbearing years, and the energies that are maternal energies I find work very, very well for growing plants and botanicals in the yards. But I don't feel like at this point that I'm personally going to invoke Fortuna, just because that time in my life is part of my history. And I also, although I wouldn't prohibit anybody from doing anything because everybody's got their own way of doing things, I would also recommend to considering that if you are not a female, a natural female, born female in your childbearing years, that it may not be the best situation for you to invoke or even consider invoking Fortuna. There's invoking is kind of an internal process where you kind of become the goddess. Um, and evoking is more like you recognize her as being a separate energy or a separate entity than you are. And what I would like to do more at this point, if I'm working with Fortuna, is to evoke her, to recognize that she represents childbearing. She represents the fertility of the fields. She represents the growing of the seed. She represents the harvesting of the fruit. She represents that fertile cycle of agriculture, botanical agriculture, that resulted in the cornucopia of fruit which she bears as a woman of her childbearing years. I think that's extremely important, and that's a change that I have gone through in continuing to honor Fortuna. I continue to put the candles, the incense, just the same as before, but I don't get up and do a recording saying, oh, I am Fortuna, embodying Fortuna or invoking Fortuna, and I'm speaking, allowing her to speak through me so that I can do this ritual for you. To me, now it's more an evocation, it's more external, and I recognize her presence. So, what I kind of envisioned, if this were to work out, would be something along the lines of maybe a younger woman might want to take on the role of becoming Fortuna. Because the fertility aspect is extremely important, and unless we're purely doing this as um, a performing art in which we are portraying somebody who's invoking Fortuna, but we're not really invoking her herself, which is kind of remote. I think it's best to, if you're a woman and you're still in your childbearing years and you're considering invoking Fortuna, well, do it now, because in a few years you might be just stuck with the evoking mode, as I am. So that said, there's a number of things that I wanted to show you, and one is this set of images that I actually downloaded along with the attributions which are required for these images. This is been printed onto a piece of 100% recycled 8.5 by 11 paper, which is biodegradable. And so my intention is to take these two images, which is the Fortuna, which is at the Vatican Museums, as well as the Fortuna, which was a smaller version for the home, which I believe was found in Pompeii, and to actually bury it in the front yard where I had planted the gazania and allow this paper to biodegrade. And as that paper biodegrades with those images, to allow whatever energies of Fortuna that were associated with this place, with the yard and so forth, to kind of gently be absorbed and allow the changes that are supposed to happen with this place to happen. As you can see, I've got a lot of boxes here ready to be packed. So I'm not kidding, I'm actually going to leave. What other things? How did I find Fortuna? Well, I told you my doggie was a very important point. And I'm going to bring out this book about my dog. This is a picture of the little doggy that you saw. Back, let's see, let's start even further back. Maybe several decades ago, when I first graduated college and I had my first dog, he was my doggies. He is very important to me, and because I've always loved pets. And he passed on in 2003, and I purchased a new dog, and I brought my brother with me when I purchased this new dog. And my brother had discovered Wicca in college. And when I was given the choice, when we went to this place that had that specific kind of dog, I was given the choice between a dog that was born on Easter and a dog that was born on Halloween. And I thought, I don't want to do the Easter thing. Let's get the Halloween dog because that's actually how I felt like at the moment. That's like I just didn't want to do the spring Easter thing after my dog had passed. So I wound up with a dog who had been born on Halloween. And there's a picture in my book where this one's him. This is my Halloween dog. He's actually black and tan, kind of the Halloween colors, orange and black. I don't know if you can see it, the glossy, right here in Santa's arms. And this is my new girl that you just saw back there. He was my sweet buddy up until 2020. He's born in 2002 and he passed on in 2020. And a few months later, the person who had sold me them called me and said, look, we've got another one coming out around 4th of July, because my first dog was a 4th of July dog. I says, okay, count me in. I want one of them. Well, he wasn't born on 4th of July. He was born on June 24th. And I didn't know what to do with the birthday. And then I looked it up, and it turned out it was the day of Goddess Fortuna. So here's me in my younger years with my Halloween boy, and this is my boy that was born on the day of Goddess Fortuna in 2003. Both of them. He was born in 2002 and he was born on June 24th, 2003. So those were my puppy dogs for a number of years. And those people who have read my book from cover to cover know the details about those doggies. However, my Woofy, as I said, my Halloween boy, reached the end of his natural life after 17 and a half years, which is a pretty long lifetime for a dog, in 2020. Now his brother, who hasn't been with me for quite some time, if he lived the same amount of years as his brother, he would have passed on sometime last year. So in another way, the way I was introduced to the Goddess Fortuna actually has changed too. And that's also been during this pandemic and this era of riots and political and upheaval as well. That has changed as well. And I need to honor that passing because I feel like that because I was aware of the Fortuna only after I had that dog, and because it was a date on the Roman calendar in ancient times, that was a way that the goddess was kind of knocking on my door saying, hey, I exist. I need to be paid attention. I have to be in your life for whatever reason. And so I felt that was a calling for a number of reasons, and that it was a natural calling, which kind of transcended whether I had a degree in Wicca or not. And what I've discovered is that even though I have done studies since then, I have never found anything quite as profound as being called by somebody's birth date to recognize the goddess. There's just nothing quite like it. So even though it is just me, it's just me having been called for whatever reason and doing what I felt that I needed to do with it. That said, it was not my first brush with mythology. Back when I was in elementary school, I was very, very much influenced by mythology. I was somewhat of a latchkey kid. My mother worked a lot. I had a lot of time after school, and I had a number of options for what I was going to do with my time. And I tell you what, homework was not first on that list. But I did like going to the library, and I did like walking by this natural mineral stream, which was in the area, Manitou Springs, Colorado, which is a very magical place. And one of the things that I was gifted from that library when they had a free book gifted was, I think, because I tried to find it years later, I think it was this volume, which is The Myths and Legends of Greece and Rome. I think it was this book, it's many years ago, but when I found this one, I think I kind of felt some familiarity. It's a beautiful, beautiful color plate of Diana and Endymion at the front. Most of this book is black and white. This was a difficult book to get. It's published in 1928. So we're almost at that 100-year mark. But this was a book that I was given free by our local library because they had a bunch of books that were wearing out. And it eventually got lost in a relocation, but thanks to places like Amazon and eBay, I think I've replaced it. But this is a huge influence. I read this book cover to cover, and I understood, believe me, that people did not believe in these gods anymore. But I thought this was a heck of a lot more realistic than Jesus and the saints, because these were divine beings that had our human faults, our human foibles, that got jealous, that got angry. And it's like, yeah, I can relate to that. I know people who act like that, you know, and being depicted in a story in a statue. It's like, well, yeah, this is real, and this is much more real than a fairy tale telling me not to go in the woods because of the apple and the witch. Because how often do we have that really happening in our lives? But we have people getting jealous. We have, marriages breaking up. We have all kind of things that happen that is really told about in these mythologies. That made me feel like I was a little less alone, and that even if we didn't believe in the gods anymore, they seemed very real to me. And especially when I was walking by that mineral stream, I just believed that if they were alive today, they'd be living in that stream or near that stream. And maybe they were. Another book that was absolutely beautiful and is much easier to get a hold of and was an influence on me at the time in elementary school, and also when I was organizing my prayers into a book, is this Round the Year in Myth and Song. Believe it or not, this book, there must have published a bunch of copies of it because this book is actually a little more easy to get a hold of. I believe it was originally published at the very end of the 19th century, and very well bound book. This book is copyright 1897 by the American Book Company, and it was not a very expensive volume. So this is one that's very, very nice, full of beautiful photographs. Round the Year in Myth and Song by Florence Holbrook. It's a children's book. This is one that I borrowed from the library and somehow forgot to give it back. And then years later, after I lost it, I bought a copy of it and sent it to the Manitou Public Library with my apologies that it wound up with me when I was a child. And then I bought another copy for myself. Here's an example of the kind of architecture that was in that book, which got me interested in architecture, and why actually eventually when I majored in architecture in university, it was because of things like this in elementary school when I'd seen these beautiful pictures of temples, and I always kind of wanted to go there. This is the Temple of Vesta, and I'm going to read this to you because I think we're past the copyright image. Let's see even the back cover of it. Isn't that beautiful? Just beautifully bound. It's really nice. I really recommend if you want to get my influence, where years later Fortuna introduced herself to me, that Round the Year in Myth and Song by Florence Holbrook might be a really good one. You don't even have to get the historic edition. I think it's been reprinted. Then I'm wondering about copyright. But this is a very short quotation. So just be with me as if you are in elementary school and I'm reading to you about Vesta. A beautiful little building in Rome is called the Temple of Vesta. Hundreds of years have passed since the Romans built this shrine. Many buildings and temples erected since have been destroyed. But this little temple still stands to show the thought and the artistic taste of the old Romans. Vesta is the goddess of the hearth. Fire is the emblem of friendship and hospitality, and in the Temple of Vesta, the fire was kept burning night and day. The Romans believed that if this fire went out, great trouble would come upon the people. So maidens were chosen to guard the fire and honor the goddess. Little girls, 6 years old, were taken from the best families in Rome, for it was considered a great honor to be chosen. For 10 years, they were taught the duties of a Vestal Virgin. Then, for 10 years, they served the goddess at her altar fires, and after that, they became the teachers of the young children. When a great general had won a victory over the enemies of Rome, and all the people gathered to celebrate the return of soldiers from the battlefield, the Vestal Virgins had an honored place in the procession. At the great games held in the Colosseum, the Vestals sat next to the emperor, for they guarded the fire of the home, the dearest place on earth. a very beautiful, beautiful little book and full of just so many lovely black and white photographs. I was absolutely in love with the goddess Diana picture with the crescent moon, as I think many little girls are. And last year, although Goddess Fortuna is a goddess of the sun, I am no longer embodying her. And I was gifted, this is so pretty. These are actually genuine semi-precious gemstones. Oops, put it right side up. This aura quartz tiara. It's got little aura quartzes. It's gifted to me through Amazon. So I'm going to put this on. Okay. I'm going to do the moon thing too. Isn't that pretty? So pretty. Anyway, it's given to me as a gift last year. I'm not going to tell you exactly how, but I'm going to do this for the ritual. Another thing that I'm going to do for this ritual today, which is an evocation ritual, is to put on 2 pieces of jewelry. And you can get these at Amazon.com, and they're not very expensive. So, yeah, you don't have to pay top dollar for these aura quartz crowns, but they're very nice, and they are genuine gemstones. Even though they're not diamonds, they're genuine gemstones. That makes a difference. It's not a rhinestone tiara. It's genuine. This is actually from Palm Suisse. This is sterling silver. I cannot afford the gold. This was bought from, there you see, the Fortuna with her cornucopia. She's in Abundantia style. This is a sterling silver pendant from, I think, eBay. I bought it previously owned. It was not expensive. I think it was less than $40, something like $25, $35. And this is actually on a sterling chain that I got back when I was doing my architectural internship in my 20s. And I used to wear this necklace when I would go out to rock concerts with my boyfriend. Back in the day when rock was still the thing. And I think it's long enough that I can clasp it and just put it over my head. Can I do it with the, yeah, yeah, I can do it. We went to like Crosby, Stills and Nash. We went to nice ones. We went to Rush, Crosby, Stills and Nash. Okay, so this is going to be my evoking pendant for today. And I've got the Diana. So a lot of us that are trained, because I have some training now in the goddess community, do connect through the moon. So I'm going to put that. And the organization that recently I have embarked upon, finally I found one that I like to learn about goddess path is goddessschool.com. And I have gone through their initiatory phase, which has the, do I want to read these? Yeah, those will look good. Which has the butterflies as emblem. I'm not going to use the actual pendant I was given when I completed it because I'm only at the first year. I'm not a high priestess phase, but this has like a butterfly on it. A little flower, 5-petaled flower, which could symbolize the 5 pointed stars. So these are actually nice earrings. I think they're sterling, but no, I think these are actually alloy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put these on if I can. Woo. Just explaining all my semi-ritual stuff. These are not dedicated to ritual. It's just what I'm wearing today. Okay, so you can kind of see that. And then this one here. Okay, like I said, when I first started, I got very intimidated. Oh, I'm going to have to get all this education and so forth. What I've discovered is it's nice, but it's not necessary. So the most recent one is Goddess Goal. I may eventually finish the program there, but what's more important is getting a job, getting back to work, right? This is just like kid stuff. It's like being in elementary school and playing. So we can't be in elementary school forever. We need to get back to work. So here I am. I already feel like a little kid anymore. Okay, so I think these are alloy. I'm not. This is alloy. This is sterling. I can tell this is alloy, but it's a pretty thing. It's just for show. And here's another cool thing. What I decided to come up with was a traveling case. This is a burgundy, kind of a burgundy color velour bag, which I really like for Fortuna because it reminds me of the fruits of summer, cherries, apples, and also the fruits of the vine as the color of wine. So this is actually a very, very good color for Fortuna, is the burgundy red. There's other colors of fruits as well, orange, yellow, and all that. But I made a little traveling case, so I can hopefully honor the goddess. I got all kind of goodies in here. This is all full of stuff. Okay, so here's the bag. It's emptied out. I don't know how big this is. I don't know. How big is that? It's a pretty big velour bag. I've got my book can barely fit in there. And here, the gazania that I was talking about. It's native to Africa, and it's a drought-resistant plant, so it's very good for the California desert where I'm living. And this has all my prayers in it. Brief history of Fortuna. This is this is beautiful. It smells wonderful. It's got frankincense in it. It's got rose in it. It's got little cinnamon in it, and it also has essential oils in it. It doesn't even need to be burned. Me and the charcoal burner things don't get along well. Every time I try to light it, it just poo, poo, poo. It spits things out all over the place and makes a mess. So just the herbs. And you know what? If you never burn them, they're always here. So, yeah. So I'm not going to burn them. Oh, I do have, and I'd gotten away from frankincense recently because I'd heard it wasn't sustainable, but apparently there are some different strains of frankincense that are sustainable. You just don't want to use the holy frankincense. I'm putting on some perfume, as long as we're playing elementary school stuff. Ooh, this smells nice. What is this? This is some more stuff that I got on. Ooh, it's nice. That I got for free as a gift. This aroma fume frankincense. You can get this from Amazon too. I don't make any money from you knowing about this. I'm just sharing my stuff, so in case you want to copy me, you can. um, and you know, frankincense is kind of a manly scent as well. So if the guys want to use it as cologne, however you guys put it on, don't put it on like behind your ears. Put it on like aftershave or however, you know, you do it as a guy. Because Fortuna actually had a consort named Bonus Eventus. We don't know much about him, but I think he was a harvesty kind of guy too. So if you want to invoke Bonus Eventus, you might want to look him up so you can find stuff about him because we don't know a lot. What's this? Okay. All right. So here's another thing. This is actually in green because it is. What I wound up doing was, because people said that I needed to have, you know, this and that and the other. I wound up going through magical school program, and it is available online, and it's also available through these books. Wicca Revealed, First Year in the Craft, and this one, Wicca Advanced, Second Year in the Craft. So you can work through the books, which are available, I believe, on Lulu.com. This is by Keith Broad. He uses the name Pinot Longchild. He says because he's tall. I'm like, okay, I'll believe that. Anyway, so anyway, this is his program. So he didn't have any ritual jewelry. So what I did was I got this because he only gives you a second degree equivalency. It's up to you to find your third degree, which I don't have. I don't have a third degree. He uses the inverted pentacle. So this has the big upright pentacle, and inside you can see kind of, it's got a gold looking inverted pentacle. So it's like I've got the second degree, but was under the direction of somebody with the first degree. It's just something that I found. This, I think, is a Swarovski. And this is just a pentacly looking thing. This is Alchemy Gothic, 1997. It's a UK company. And that's the back of it. They actually put insignias on it. It's pewter. The thing I liked about it is I have, I'm not going to say too much about my family. I have a family member. Will this work? Yeah, it looks like it might. Maybe I want to scooch it up a little bit. I think it's backwards. Okay. I have a family member who went to college in England. I'm not going to tell you who. I think it might. Yeah, that might work. Okay. All right. So here's this. I actually do have the second degree equivalency, and I went through the self-initiation ritual. So I do have High Priestess now through magical school. So it doesn't teach you anything about Fortuna, but I felt like if somebody needed me to be official, that was the easiest way for me to do it here in the desert because we don't have any organizations nearby that offer. So I have a second degree equivalency, a High Priestess title. It's ritual, ceremonial ritual, Wicca, kind of hodgepodge stuff, but it's good. It was a good education. And then here's what's this? This is just some goodies. Some dice, some wooden dice, a carnelian, a venturine. There's something else in here. Oh, a hematite angel, hematite iron based. That should help keep away any evil spirits that might want to glob in while you're trying to honor Fortuna. This is actually from a, I found a Fortuna quote on a Good Earth tea bag thing. Let me see if I can set her up so she's kind of, there you go. It's right here. It says, Fortune favors the brave. Virgil 70 BC to 19 BC. It's actually on the back of one of these little tea tags. So I kept that. That's my miniature, my miniature scriptures for Fortuna, the tea bag. Oh, and one last thing, because I mentioned that I initiated recently, I finally found a Goddess Path program that I think I can handle. It's it's my little ring here. It has pictures of butterflies on it. What does it say inside? Oh, okay. It says, "Do what makes you shine, your soul shine." And this is 9 to 5 sterling. So I got this as kind of a present. So this is kind of maybe a magical ring. If I want to say it's a magical ring, it has the butterflies on it. I forgot I had that. So here we are. We're playing. We're in elementary school, and I do have the second degree equivalency. So okay, all right. Here's another cool thing. This is from the local thrift. And wouldn't you know, it's burgundy with flowers on it. Isn't that nice? Isn't that beautiful? And it's copper. Copper is oh, the clapper's kind of stuck in there. Copper is a metal that is attributed to Venus. Fortuna Venus is one of Fortuna's aspects. So this little bell, like I said, I got it from the local thrift shop. Absolutely beautiful. Is for my Sonic. And this soy candle. I recommend 100% soy. Please keep your offerings vegan, and if you can be vegan yourself, then that's the closest you're going to ever come to embodying Fortuna. Veganism is it. There's a very cool thing that was on eBay. I think she was from Greece. This is an Abundantia version of Fortuna with a fridge magnet on the back. And instead of being in the back of a magnet, she's actually stuck to the inside lid. Oh, inside lid of this this candle tin. It's an extra large. I think it's 6 ounce candle tin. Yeah, so I got this on eBay. It wasn't very expensive. I think it's resin, but it has like a copper tone, so we got the matching coppers. This is really nice. This stuff was just hodgepodge of stuff that all came together. So I'm going to go ahead and set her kind of like at the north end of my little altar. Maybe I need an altar cloth. Let me see. I have a holographic tarot. It's also gifted to me. And inside here I have my reading cloth, which is a bandana. I'm going to go ahead and set my bandana up here as an altar cloth. So I'm actually got a buffer on the top of this stuff. So I'm going to get all this stuff up here so I can get something sort of like an altar space here. Just to show you that I'm not going to do the formal rituals anymore. Like, this is stuff I put together, a tea bag from a tea. I mean, who would have known I've gotten a piece of tea that had Fortuna on it. So let's go ahead and put this. I'm just using this as an altar cloth on the top of this box. It could go anywhere. And here's the top of my velour thing. I'll put this on top of here. Okay, just scatter my dice and my rocks around. My loose frankincense, I'm going to kind of put this towards the east. My candle is kind of towards the south. And look at this. I even got an electric USB rechargeable lighter. It's in burgundy. Isn't that cool? We're so color coordinated here. So this all just came together because for luck, let's see, what's west? What's west? Oh, the bell. Bells are sonic, which is usually east, but bell, if it's inverted, it has a sort of a cup. So I'm going to put my bell over here to the west. This can represent the cup. And this hematite angel, because Fortuna often appeared as angels, can come here. Oh, she doesn't want to stay upwards. Okay, I'm going to let her lay down like she's a snow angel. Okay. Maybe, maybe she can sit on top of this. Yes, okay, so I'm setting her on top of the candle tin, so she's not going to flip over. Okay, so she's working really well. And then Fortuna here, I'm just going to put her right in the center. I'm going to surround her by some beautiful stones, her little miniature scripture, dais. Okay, so I don't know. Okay, I can't show you this, so you're just going to have to, well, maybe I can kind of tilt the, maybe I can kind of tilt this so you can kind of see. Okay, so you can kind of see, my Fortuna is here, the hematite angel is here, the herbs are here, the candle is here, and my bell is here. So I'm just going to ring this bell to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north. I'm just making this up as I go along. And then this, hopefully is this charged up? Am I charged up? Oh, I have to turn it on. Still getting used to these. I'll light the candle. Okay, I used to light 2 candles because that was a ritual I grew up with when I was a kid in my parents' home. But I just use 1 anymore. So this won't be exactly the ritual. And as I say, I'm not trying to invoke. I'm just evoking. Okay, here we are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this sheet, if I can find it. Yeah, this original worship services sheet here. So facing east, these herbs, sum sine regno, I have no kingdom. And facing south, the candle, regnavo, I shall reign. Careful with the candle. Always be careful. Facing west, regnavo, I reign, with the bell. And facing north, regnavi, I have reigned, with the little angel. These little gemstones angels, you can get them from eBay or Amazon. They're not that expensive. And you can price shop, find the best deal, and then if you have a few things you want to buy from the shop, if it's too cheap, then you can do it that way. The candles. What I used to say was gold for the sun for prosperity, for success, 2 for partnership and doubling, doubling of prosperity, doubling of success, success, doubling of all good things. What I might want to say is herbs and incense for prosperity, for success, 2 containers for partnership and for doubling, doubling of prosperity, doubling of success, doubling of all good things, blessed be. So there's an example of how you can adapt it to what you have. And then the invocation is going to be an evocation at this point. O Goddess Fortuna, we evoke you. And your prosperity. I'm changing that. Please bring us good fortune into our lives and prosperity. Okay, so change that a little bit. You who inspires us to be good providers for our homes, you who are with us in our public and in our private lives, you who protects the newborn infants and new mothers, you who brings happiness in marriage, you who brings wealth to the poor and underprivileged, you who empowers us to speak with our minds and with our hearts, you who are with us every day and one day at a time, you who also remember the wealthy, may they be good leaders, you who brings our loved ones home safely from their travels, be with us, be with us, be with us. You are welcome. And this is an evocation you can use, whether you're in your childbearing years or not. There's no requirement to be in your childbearing years to evoke Fortuna. Now, there's a whole thing, and it's actually, I think, inside this case. So I'm not going to lift it up right now, where I explained what these evocations were, the good providers for their homes. That would probably be just Force Fortuna, who Fortuna Privata maybe for the home. You who are in our public and our private lives would be Fortuna Publica and Privata. You who protects newborn infants and new mothers would be Fortuna Primigenia. You who brings happiness in marriage would be Fortuna Venus, Fortuna Virginalis, Fortuna Virilis. You who brings wealth to the poor and underprivileged would be Force Fortuna, which is the June 24th birth date that I told you about. You who empowers us to speak with our minds and with our hearts, that could be Fortuna Muliebris. And you who are with us every day and one day at a time. Oh, golly. I don't actually remember all this. Um, every day and one day. That would be the Fortuna Huyuskedye. And you who brings our loved ones home safely from our travels would be Fortuna Redux. Um, this is all explained, not explained, but all of those aspects and the holidays are in my book, Yes, Fortuna. And you can also find a lot of them on Thalia Took's website, but they're not organized according to the calendar year. She has the stories about each of these aspects. So for this ritual of evocation, I'm just going to ask to have the goddess blessing on what I've shared today and what I'm going to share now. And this goddess here, this angel goddess, she keeps on falling down because she's really not for any spiritual reason, but just because she's a little bit top heavy, with the wings being heavier than the base. But that's just it. There's a few things that I've discovered about Fortuna over the years. One thing is that she's extremely good at divination. And one thing that I've noticed that is actually the first thing I noticed, that she's good with coins because of the abundantia. And I like to use golden coins. These ones are Sacagawea with an eagle on the back. The eagle is actually, it's interesting. The eagle's flying left unless you turn the eagle upside down, which would mean they'd be flying on their back, and it has them turning right. So what I usually do is say that the Sacagawea, which she's not necessarily a goddess, but she's iconic, that the Sacagawea would symbolize yes, and then the eagle, which is flying left, which left is less lucky than flying right, would be a no. So for any answer to a question, I could flip these 2 coins 3 times. If I get, and let's just do this for an example. Let's ask a question of Fortuna. Okay, this one here needs to stay here. Okay, let's ask a question during ritual. And just a yes or no question. I'm going to ask something kind of mild. Do you feel that you will be happy after we have made the changes that we make? And I've got here an eagle and a Sacagawea, which is a maybe. It's neither yes nor no. Second throw, I've got another maybe, a yes or no. Third throw, and again, a maybe. Okay, so maybe she'll be happy. And what that tells me is that maybe she won't. So there's no guarantee that she's going to be happy with the changes, but that doesn't mean that anything terrible is going to happen. That may mean that there may be sadness on her part as well as happiness on her part, same as it is with us. We're happy for what we have and we're sad with what we've lost. So she's showing again her human side. She's just, in ways, she is us and we are her. So yeah, there's some good things about it and some not so good things about it, and that's very true. So these are actually coins that have been blessed. These are my personal coins. You can get your own coins. They don't have to be golden, but I kind of particularly like the Sacagawea eagle coins because they've been with me through this process for so long. So I'm going to go ahead and put these up for now. These may wind up in my kit, I'm not sure, but they've been on the altar for a long, long time. And more divination. Now, Fortuna's divination comes from her Fortuna Primigenia oracle in Praeneste, which was the second most famous oracle in ancient times as compared to the oracle at Delphi. This is the Rider-Waite style. It's a holographic tarot, which is very cool, of 72 cards. Every deck of cards has a Wheel of Fortune card on it. They do not usually show the Goddess Fortuna. However, the wheel is one of Fortuna's symbols, so that she does appear in every tarot deck. And I'm going to see if I can find that wheel in this deck. I'm going to have to put part of it down because I'm getting too many in my hands right now. Okay. So basically, the energies of Fortuna bless tarot readings. If you've learned to read tarot, or if you want to read tarot, Goddess Fortuna can be invoked or evoked to assist in accurate tarot readings. This is the Wheel of Fortuna card, Rider Waite style, in this holographic tarot. You can see the wheel, the different images, and there's reasons for the different, oh, let's see, it's astrological reasons for the different images on the four corners they're elemental representations of astrological signs on the four corners, these images, which is very standard for this style of tarot. But yeah, this is actually Fortuna's image in any deck of tarot cards, and the images will vary, but most often it has a wheel, which is one of her images of moving forward, or the wheel of the year, the wheel of the seasons, and the planting. So that's actually one of her images. I can go ahead and place that on here to represent Fortuna if I don't have a Fortuna image. And another thing I have to put in while I'm talking about divination is one of our very, very devoted long-term friends of the temple, who has been at many, many board meetings where he and I have been awaiting for a third person to show up so we could have a quorum, is our good friend, Mr. Robert Place, who is an award-winning tarot artist. This is a very, very cool tarot he came out with, along with numerous wonderful decks, during the time that the Temple of Fortuna organization was afloat between 2009 and 2012. He's been an influence, and perhaps we've been an influence on him during all those times. This is the Marziano Tarot, which I particularly like because it has a lot of the ancient deities involved in the tarot. Like, for example, he's showing Apollo here. This is not holographic, but it looks kind of holographic, huh? Apollo here. And then all four suits have different kinds of birds on them. This is the suit of eagles, or, well, I think it's phoenixes. So this is actually a tarot that it features, and I believe these are turtle doves. And this is Aola, the west wind. And Pallas Athena, who's been an influence on me recently because I did actually complete the Sage Goddess programs because they're local to California, not for really any other reason than that. But this is actually a very nice deck, along with numerous other ones he came out with. It's particularly associated with the Greco-Romano, Romanic mythology. So again, I don't get any money for that. Other volumes that were of influence was the Wiccan Prayer Book. Before I wrote my own, I was using this one. The Wiccan Prayer Book by Mark Ventimiglia. A lot of people think that his prayers are very simplified. The simple prayers are often good. You can also write your own. A resource that really verified to me that it was okay to honor the goddess with completely vegan offerings is the Homeric hymns. This is often representing Fortuna as Tyche, which is the Greek personification of her. And actually, the poem to her here evokes a lot of different. Oh no, this is Homeric hymns. I was thinking of Homeric hymns. No, never mind. Homeric hymns, I don't know that they have one to Tyche. I was thinking of the. Excuse me, I think it's over there. Orphic hymns. The Orphic hymns. Hang on. Strike that. I haven't really read the Homeric hymns. This is the Orphic hymns that I was thinking of. This is the one that has a hymn to Tyche. And there's a number of different volumes. You don't have to pay a lot. If you want to do a free download on Kindle, I think there's even a version that you can do that with. This one is translated by Thomas Taylor, and he actually calls to fortune on page 136 in this volume. And I'm going to go ahead and read that because it's a very famous one with Anne, that's been around a long time. This is where we learned that Fortuna prefers frankincense. There's also a couple of, what am I thinking about? I'm getting tired now. There's some fables that involve Fortuna, and one of which said that she liked frankincense. Okay, so this one says, approach strong Fortuna with propitious mind and rich abundance, to my prayer inclined, placid, gentle Trivia, who would be Hecate in the Greek, mighty named, imperial Diana, born of Pluto famed, mankind's unconquered, endless praise is thine, sepulchral, widely wandering power divine, to thee our mortal life is found, and some from thee high copious wealth abound, while others mourn thy hand averse to bless, while in all bitterness of deep distress be present, Goddess, to thy votary kind and give abundance with benignant mind. Now, I don't know what all that means. They're invoking a lot of people aside from Fortuna, so it is an evocation. And it's a traditional one. It's not my favorite, but it does. What I like about the Orphic hymns is it tells us that the botanical offerings. So we can bypass some of the horrendous stuff that was done in ancient times. Another book that was helpful to me was this one. It's not expensive. Tradition of Goddess Fortuna in Roman Literature and in the Transitional Period. I'm going to actually put this on pause for a little bit because I need to take a break, and I'll be right back. There we go. Okay, I'm back. we're at over an hour now. I hope YouTube can upload this. Okay, let me go ahead and just trust me that this altar is doing what it needs to be done. We're going to put this up a little bit easier so I can see it. And then you can also see the Fortuna up there. That's a more expensive statue, but you can actually, as long as you give credit to the people who did the images, I think these are very important to include. You can also do downloads of images. And there's also public domain images. Wikimedia images often has public domain Fortuna images that you can download. So you can just download an image. You can draw something. You can put a piece of fruit. Here's something kind of cool. Be right back. This is another thrift shop find. It's wooden vegetables. You can see the grapes, and I'm going to try and rotate this around. I don't know if there was bananas in Fortuna's era, but there's bananas and so forth. Found this at the thrift shop for like $5. It's very, very beautiful. I don't want to dump all the all of the fruits out, but it's just like a plate of wooden representations of fruit. I am showing you that so that you will know that even putting an offering of fruit, if you want to say it's an offering in honor of Fortuna, you can make that offering of fruit. You can leave the fruit outside after the ritual is done. You can say, with the blessings of Fortuna, I eat this fruit, or whatever you want to say. I eat this piece of fruit in honor of the goddess Fortuna with thanks for your abundant harvest. Whatever. It can be as simple as a piece of fruit. You can do a drawing. And like I said, you don't need here's my pretty puppy dog again. This sweetie. You don't need all the fancy education. You just need to be sincere and that you feel like that you want to do this. As long as it's legal in your country. There's some countries where it's maybe not legal to honor the goddess Fortuna. So I don't advocate honoring anything that's against the government. The reason why is because back in ancient times, she represented the government. So she represents what's legal to do. So I would look at, well, what are your options for what's legal in your country? I would say in most countries, it's probably legal to eat fruit. So you can, close your eyes and imagine whatever you want to imagine, and with delight, eat that fruit, and you know what it's for. So that's, that's one option. But yeah, I would say definitely keep within the laws of your country, because if you're straying from the laws, then you're also straying from the original intention of Fortuna. So it's not the kind of thing you're really going to sneak around in the woods and honor Fortuna. She was very much a public goddess, and so it's very much about trying to do the right thing, even if it seems like it's not corresponding with your belief in Fortuna. If you're being a civic-minded person and doing the right thing by your community, then you are indeed honoring her. So that's something to keep in mind. What else do I have here? I have just a whole bunch of goodies here, and I think I've worked through most of them. Roman Festivals of the Republic. This is a nice book. I haven't read through it completely, but has a lot of Roman festivals. Ovid's poem, even though it's short, the one called Fasti, Fasti, has a lot of fun verse. Poetry and Translation is the website I found a lot of them. And recently, this author, who unfortunately passed, has come my direction, Raven Grimassi. He has this book, the Book of the Holy Strega. This does not seem to have a lot to do with Fortuna, but what it does have to do with is the country in which Fortuna developed, which was Italy, and specifically Rome, and a distinctively Roman viewpoint towards the moon goddess, whom a lot of people honor these days, and mythology that was attributed to her, as well as a lot of philosophical ideas of how mythological practice developed over time. So Raven Grimassi actually wound up being a very helpful author to me, whom I read quite a bit of after my dog passed in 2020, the one who was the Halloween dog. I found that Raven Grimassi was a very helpful author to read. And although he doesn't necessarily mention Fortuna, he's got a lot of writings about blood lineage and um, the time of passing and how things stay within the realm of spirit even after they've gone. So as far as any kind of a transitional change, and it's interesting that he was going through his transitional change around the time that I was reading this because he passed on very recently. So I found that these were very, very good books to read. I read a number of books by Raven Grimassi, and we were actually visited by one of the local ravens twice the same week before he passed. And interestingly enough, he passed the day after I had moved all of the information over to Blogger where we knew it would be safe. So I feel like that he, as an ambassador for his brother who is not here, was making sure that everything that we had worked on together was in a safe place. And then he said, okay, this is my day to pass. And he was actually on my lap. I was hand feeding him through a baster because he was not wanting to eat. And he just took one look at me and just gave me a look like, don't you get it? I'm getting ready to go. And then he just went in my lap. So yeah, it's a very dramatic moment. But we had read a lot of Raven Grimassi after he passed. It was helpful, as well as Normandy Ellis's interpretation of the Book of the Dead, which I believe is Awakening Osiris is the name of that. That was a helpful one too. Fortuna also has aspects that have to do with Egypt, and one of the Egyptian goddesses who syncretized with a lot of the Greco-Roman um, deities, also syncretized with Fortuna. The last thing I want to do before I leave is to go through the website, and not a lot on the website, just a few things that might be helpful to those of you who have been through this kind of follow-up ritual in which we honor the goddess Fortuna, we honor the space in which we learned so much and experienced so much of life, and through which our country changed so much over the last 12 years. We honor this space, we honor the goddess, and we honor the good fortune we had to be in this space for as many years as we have, the good friends that we have connected with, whether they were only briefly for an episode on a podcast, or whether they've remained long-term friends throughout the organization's life, and whatever happens afterwards. Certainly we'll see you all on social networking from time to time. So this is actually the last one I'm going to do in this space as a public recording, and it's not for the organization, it's actually for the goddess herself. The goddess herself transcends an organization, and she has transcended many organizations. The website is templeoffortuna.com. That's linked to the domain name, and it's possible that I'm going to be able to link things better together in the future, or they may stay the way they are. But anyway, there are a number of tabs when you click through the Enter the Temple tab on the website that might be helpful to people who are new. And if you would like to go through learning on a Sunday morning or whenever morning, and I'm actually recording this on a Thursday afternoon, so we're already transitioning out of the Sunday morning time slot. Thursday, being the day of Jupiter, Jupiter being Fortuna's father, and her being perhaps the firstborn, first natural born child of Jupiter and Juno, um, according to some mythologies I've read. And there's always very different versions of where people come from. But that's one of the versions I heard, was that she was the first natural born daughter of Jupiter and Juno. Minerva or Athena being his firstborn, but not a natural birth, because there's a different sort of mythology about that. Several tabs. One tab I want to point out to you on the website is called Calendar. That's one of the most simple tabs. You will see all of the holidays that were associated with Rome that I am aware of, and their calendar dates, and the aspect of the goddess Fortuna that it was associated with those calendar dates throughout the month. So if you're in a certain month and you're thinking, well, I want to honor a goddess Fortuna holiday this month, it's a really quick place to find the goddess Fortuna holidays that may have occurred that month. And Goddess Fortuna holidays occur pretty much every month of the year, except for the time before the Roman New Year, which was April. Their New Year was in spring. So most of January, February, and March do not have Fortuna holidays. But April through December, and in later times also January 1st, she did have holidays at least once a month, sometimes more frequently. And different aspects, different locations, different temples, different stories. She had a wide variety of different people that she served, from slave-born to the elite equestrian class, to the emperors, to mothers, children. There was just an aspect of Fortuna for everybody. She was all pervasive. The image of Tyche, which is a version of Fortuna, actually was on the gates to many cities. So she was actually had a protective function for the community as well. She's an extremely important goddess back in the day. So those calendar dates are if you want to honor an aspect of Fortuna on any of those days, or any time around them, because it doesn't necessarily have to be on the exact date. It could be like, okay, there's a holiday mid-month, but I have to work. Well, don't take off work to go to the holiday, because that doesn't honor her. Go to your job, find out when your natural day off is, either before or after the holiday, and celebrate it then. Or just, you can eat a piece of fruit in her honor at lunchtime. But yeah, don't take off work to do these holidays. It's better to be able to pay your bills and pay your fair share in the community. I will tell you that from experience. It is much better. So those are calendar dates. They're not hard and fast for us in the contemporary time, because we're not under Roman rule. Back in the day, maybe those dates were like more important, like our government holidays are now. But since we're in a more flexible era, it's maybe more fun to celebrate them, because we can kind of do what we want, right? At the very bottom of the calendar page is an interactive calendar that originally came to me through Laura Gibbs, who is a professor of Latin. She had a version of that, and I reworked it for the website um, with her permission. And that will give you the Roman calendars on any calendar date, or it should, if it's still working, the Roman calendar dates for any day. So if you're wondering what are the Roman holidays for any particular day or week, you can find it with that interactive Roman calendar. And that should recycle every year. There's also a prayers and offerings page. What did I put on that? Hang on. So I reworked this recently, so it can be friendly for relocating. Prayers and offerings. Oh, let me make sure I'm not in my candle here while I do this. Ooh. Okay, this is one you can look at to see what kind of offerings are appropriate for the goddess. That's not what I was going to look at. Okay, the recordings page. Recordings page is one that I would really super recommend to you if you are new and you want to listen to a ritual for the goddess. Just kick back on your couch or hang out and light a candle or some incense. And again, soy candles, the vegan candles, are definitely recommended. Even petroleum-based candles, your cheap candles, oftentimes they're not entirely vegan, which is hard to understand, but oftentimes there's animal products actually in those candles. So I would say it's probably better off to just light some incense, and don't use candles unless you can afford the expensive 100% soy ones. I've gone way away from beeswax. I've gone way away from the cheap candles. They look pretty, but it's probably better to stay away from them, because the closer I get to vegan, botanical, herb offerings, the more closely I feel connected to the Goddess Fortuna. Now, those recordings were recorded back in 2009 and 2010. So when I'm talking about moon phases and this and that, it may not pertain to the present day, but it will pertain to the calendar year. And when you go to the recordings page, you'll see there's organized by spring, summer, autumn, or winter, and that's based on Northern Hemisphere. So if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, you may want to swap out your seasons, or you may want to do it according to the calendar year, and that's your choice. Those, there was a Fortuna holiday, we did a ritual for the Goddess Fortuna. When there wasn't a Goddess Fortuna holiday, we did a range of different things. One of the things we did is we honored the different sun signs through the astrology, such as Capricorn, Aquarius, Aries, so forth, when the sun was falling through that season. Other things that we did was we would honor the Celtic moon months, which at the time I wasn't sure was pertinent, but now I am sure it's pertinent because the Romans did go into Celtic territories, and after whatever happened during that era, there was some integration between the Celtic and the Roman. So if those moon months were a thing back in Celtic times, and there's controversy over that, then the Romans would have been aware of them and they probably would have adopted them. And the original Roman calendars, I believe, if I remember correctly, were based on moon months anyway. So those were basically a new interpretation of a Celtic moon month. We did those as well. So you can kind of find your way around which season in spring or summer or autumn or winter to start with, and just go consecutively through the podcasts. They last about an hour. Listen to one a week. You can just listen. You can hang out on your couch, close your eyes, relax after hard days of work, flip on the recording and listen. For a while, those recordings were not available. The players wouldn't play. I believe that's been fixed. I'm not an IT professional, so if it hasn't been fixed, drop me a note, let me know. And best way is to drop a note, let me know how you can fix them so that they can be, so I won't have to figure out how to do that because I'm not an IT professional. So if you've got ideas how to make things better and you're willing to do the work, by all means say so. But if they're not working and you want me to do the work, well, I would just say, you know what I got for you? I got a book you can buy. Do your own ritual. Okay? Make your own podcast. So yeah, I'm not going to be putting that much time into it. And I don't mean that to be rude. I mean that as an invitation because I do not own the goddess. I merely own the templeoffortuna.com website domain name. And the work on the website does represent, the lion's share of it represents my work. However, those podcasts are really pretty awesome because I had a lot of people who knew a lot more than me who came in and played music and talked to me about all kinds of things. So it's not just me talking. There's a lot of guests. We had Robert Place. Why did my hematite candle fall? Hematite iron protection fall out when I said his name. She's back in place. We had Robert Place, the award-winning author of the Marziano Tarot. He was with us, which is how I met Robert Place. Selena Fox, Maka Nightmare. We had a lot of the well-known people. We never got Raven Grimassi on. I would have loved to have had him on. We never got Raymond Buckland on. And by the way, I did self-initiate through his book. I believe it was The Tree. I self-initiated into his program shortly after he passed because I felt like it was important to do something during that liminal time. So I read it really quickly and self-initiated. Well, hopefully those energies were kind of transitioning. So I do have some initiations under my persona since that original time when I had nothing but my university degree. Let's see. So yeah, those podcasts, we had wonderful musicians, Tuatha Dea, we had Jenny Walker, we had oh golly, Kenny Klein, uh, just the guitarist who's so good, Brian Hankey. We had just wonderful musicians. And when my when my coffer was not overflowing with musicians, my cousin Jesse actually was one of the musicians in the family that I played his stuff, and we have his music a lot, and we all have our personal lives and our own personal issues, but the music speaks, and the music is very beautiful. So we had some wonderful guests. So those podcasts are not just me talking. There's me in a ritual similar to what I'm doing now, but a little bit more formal because I was a little bit younger. I was going through some changes at the very end of my fertile years, and I was trying to get back to work. I was always convinced I was going to go back to Los Angeles, which is where I last worked, and that just didn't seem to happen. So I was under a lot of pressures that I'm not under the same kind of pressures right now. So we did have a lot of guests, and I'm thinking that's pretty much it. The book, the website, and number one is the podcast, because if it wasn't for all the guests and the work that I did on the podcasts, maybe from being from a musical performing arts family and so forth, I don't think I would ever have done the work on the website. I would not have done the extra mile and gotten the nonprofit. I wouldn't have had the Facebook group. I wouldn't have written my book. I mean, nothing would have happened if I hadn't done those podcasts. So what I recommend to you, instead of asking me questions about how to do things, is number one, giving yourself permission to do things how you wish, with my recommendation to keep it vegan and botanical. That's 100% my best recommendation. You can buy my book if you like. You don't have to, because every single one of those prayers and every single one of those histories comes from what I put into those podcasts. And it's real easy. You can put it on while you're in the kitchen cooking dinner. You can put it on while you're getting ready for work in the morning. You can put it on the weekend. Just flip on the audio, have it in the background if you like, and listen. And what you don't like so much, you can fast forward over. What you do like, you can repeat it or listen more. But I would suggest to go through the seasons along with the seasons, because that's when I recorded them, was along with the seasons. And then you can kind of experience what I was learning and draw your own conclusions. And then if you want to come back and post in the Facebook group, I listened to Thus and So podcast about, Fortuna Equestris, and it was really interesting, the story about how Fulvius, whatever his name, Fulvius Flaccus ripped off Juno's temple to try and put the stonework into Fortuna's temple, and he got caught, and the terrible things that happened to his family afterwards, blah, 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 blah. But what I think about that story that's even more interesting than what you put about is, and then give me your opinion, well, then we've got a conversation. But if you just come in and say, well, what do I do? How do I do a ritual? How do you do it? Who cares? You haven't done the work. What you need to do is you need to do the studies. You need to bring in your opinion of what the Goddess Fortuna means to you, because what she means to me may not be what she means to you. And mine is not the only website out there. Thalia took uh, online goddess obscure directory, ogod.com, I think it is. She has a lot of information about Fortuna. There's a lot of wiki articles about Fortuna. I would say go ahead and do your studies. You're not going to offend me by going out and studying and bringing in your opinion about what you believe. You're going to help me. It doesn't help me to kiss my what and say, well, how do you do it? Because I want to really kiss up to you. Like I said, I'm not that way. So go ahead and do your rituals. If she helps you, that's honestly fine, but it's not me, because I'm evoking at this point. She's external to me. I'm no longer capable of personally portraying a female fertility goddess any more than a lot of us are anymore. That period is gone. I cannot go back there. Okay, so do what you can. We'll be here to have a conversation if you want to talk to other people about what they think you should do and what's okay to do ritual for Hellenic or Roman goddess. Well, then you're having a conversation that I'm not really in. Okay, and that's fine with me, but just don't grab my ear and say, hey, I want to talk to somebody else about what they're interested in. Will you please pay attention while I do so? I'm like, I don't have time for that. Okay, so anyway, here's your video. I am going to go ahead and do, and I just made this up, okay? You can make up stuff too, or you can copy what I do, or you can modify what I do. It's fine, as long as you're genuine and sincere, but don't evoke me, because it's not going to work for you. You're going to have to evoke separately, or if you are in a female, a natural female, born female, in your childbearing years, and you want to invoke, it's your choice whether you want to do that or whether you still want to evoke too, okay? Now, here's our closing that we used, and I am going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do something with these little things on my altar-ish altar. Oh, while I do this. Okay, so facing north, I would do the reverse of what I said. Regnawi, I have reigned. And facing west, Regno, I reign. And facing south, Regnawo, I shall reign. And at this point, I'm actually going to put that lid on top, which acts as its own candle snuffer. I'm going to go ahead and let her lay down like a little snow angel. There we go. And there's the smoke from where the candle, and amazing. Isn't it cool how it doesn't get for some reason, it doesn't get the soot from the candle on the inside of this candle tin holder. Anyway, I'm amazed by that. And then facing east, which would be our incense. It's just loose incense. I don't burn it. If you want to burn it, that's fine. But if it's loose, then you never have to buy more, right? Okay, Sum Sine Regno, I have no kingdom. Okay, this is me. I'm no longer portraying Mama Fortuna because I don't feel it's appropriate anymore, although I still use the screen name, and it helps me to evoke Fortuna as Mama Fortuna to help me in my divination. But this is me, E. Sylvia Simpson, and not for templeoffortuna.com, but to acknowledge the entity that was templeoffortuna.com and to return to my personal persona. May you have good fortune. Blessed be.